Project 1. Hi, Joe Cerrone. Today we're going to look at how to create this tablet holder. And this program, or at least this project, is taken from the 3D printing projects book, Project 1. And so the idea is to model this and to 3D print it. And the dimensions are given in millimeters. And then the construction techniques are pretty general, and I kind of like it because you can use any CAD software. Um, so essentially, what we'll do is we'll draw two 35 millimeter circles, and then we'll place a line between the two of them, and we'll make that line 115 millimeters between centers. And then we'll draw another line tangent to each of the circles, and once we've created the bottom shape of it, we'll trim that out, and then we'll take that 35 millimeter circle and we'll slice a quadrant, or we'll trim a quadrant out of it and 3D rotate it to this position. And I've done a lot of that already for you. I'm going to include a template for you, and so what I did as I was laying this out was I just thought I'd kind of do it step by step. And so here's those two 35 millimeter circles. This is 115 millimeters between them. Here's that little wedge, or at least a quarter of one of the circles. And then this is the shape that we'll need for the bottom of the base. And then here is the part over here, and then continues. All right, so if we switch back over to the exercise here, once we've done that quadrant, what we'll do is we'll sweep it around the bottom, and then it'll give us this shape. Once we've done that, we'll come back and we'll draw this profile shape. And the profile shape I just drew flat like this. And what I did to hold my place, and this is what you do with AutoCAD, is you look at the basic overall dimensions of the part, and this is the shape of the cutout, and it's 12 millimeters from the bottom and then another 26. And so what I did was I just drew this to those dimensions. I think I made it a little taller so that I would wind up short when I made it into this purple shape over here. And then again I 3D rotated it and put it into this position. What I found was when I extruded this through the part, it didn't go straight. I'm not sure if my UCS was lined up in the correct position. So rather than have that possibility, what I did is I just drew a line down the center of the part, and then what we'll do is we'll extrude it along a path, and it'll go right down the middle, giving us this component like that. The only thing I didn't do on this one was to put the little 5 millimeter bottom, and so they've got this little bottom down here. Extrude the bottom of the shape 5 millimeters, and we can easily do that, and I can add that. So let's get started. I'll take it from the top, and once we have this modeled, we can save it, and then we can export it as an STL and bring it into our slicer to 3D print. You're also welcome to add a logo or something to the side of it. I think that would be pretty cool. All right, so I'm going to go to a top view. All right, now one of the things that's important is that in D2L you're going to need a metric template, and so what I've done is I've created a metric template, and I'll put it into the D2L. Okay, so what I've done is I put this B-size metric template for the title block under title blocks in the CAD 107 D2L course folder. And what you can do is you can download it and open it, and you'll have the basic metric template. And then if I switch back to model space, we can go ahead and draw those different shapes. And so I'll come back here to Layer, Object, turn off the grid. And I think as I get down to it, it's really pretty straightforward. We'll come out here with I want a center diameter circle, and so I wasn't sure if I got that. Center diameter 35, line, wake up the center, drive that out, 115, escape, copy. Okay, so I've downloaded the title block and I'm now constructing the two circles. Okay, and so these are 35 millimeter circles. If I click on it, click on one of these corners, 17.5 times 2 is 35. So that's our radius. And then what I can do is I can draw a line from the quadrant to the quadrant. And let's just put quadrant on here. Now in my original file, I actually made these twice as big, and so when we look at the original template, and this is why I try to test these out, it looks a little bit fatter, kind of squatty, and so that was the first thing I noticed as I'm doing this for the second time. So this one will be a little bit thinner looking, but technique is still the same. Once I have that shape, what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy it. Well, actually, I'm not going to copy it because I've got that other template with all the copies in it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to trim it, and so we'll say trim, enter to make everything a cutting line, trim this out, hit escape. We don't need this anymore. We do need a line from here to the center and then over here. And what we're going to do is to copy that to the side and trim it so that we just have this shape. And I like to use layers, and so I'm going to make a layer, and you can just go with layer 1. I'm going to make this green, and I'm going to put that on layer 1. You'll notice that I have the toolbars. I like to use 3D modeling workspace for AutoCAD, which is located right here, workspace switching. And then what I like to do is to use tools, toolbars, and then to put things like the layers and the properties, because I can never seem to find them in the interface. All right, let's keep this moving. So now that I've created that slice, I don't need this anymore. I don't need this one anymore. I might have been able to do it more efficiently, but all right, and then we are going to need this to be a polyline, so when we sweep it, it's one continuous line. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say p-edit. I'm going to select the line, yes, and I'll join it, and then I'll put a box around it. If you do not have a polyline as your sweep path or your revolve path or any of those translational elements, then you'll get a surface instead of a solid, which we won't be able to 3D print. We're going to move that wedge back into the center of it. And before we do, we need to make that into a polyline also. Now we could probably use the region command on that. Let's try that. So we'll say region, and then we'll put a box on that one. And before I do, I'm going to just make the current layer to be layer 1. Otherwise otherwise it's going to turn blue and be on that other layer. Alright, so region is an enclosed boundary shape also, which will allow me to translate that into a 3D solid. I'm going to move it. And I'm going to 3D rotate it. Now before I 3D rotate it, you're going to need to take a 3D view. So we'll go to a southeast isometric view, and we'll just zoom in on that. 3D rotate, select part, put the gizmo right here. Select the axis of rotation, drive it up, then drive it over. And you'll notice with the polar tracking, it comes in pretty nicely. Once I have that created, there's two things that I'm going to do. I'm going to make a copy of this circular shape because I have a feeling it will consume the geometry when I revolve it or when I sweep it, because I want to extrude this down 5 millimeters. So we will then sweep this shape. I'll hit enter and I'll select the sweep path, and that gives us our shape. I'm also going to take this shape right here and I'm going to extrude that down 5 millimeters. And then I'm going to move it. It looks to me like it likes to grab the centers. A lot of times it's hard to work with this realistic view. You may be better off to go with a wireframe just to see the centers. And I really want this on the bottom one. There we go. So we'll say that and that. Did it do it? No, it's too high. So I need to move it down. Let's just undo and try it again. So we'll say move, select the object, and we'll just go with from this point right here to this point right here. That works better. And then we can union those, and then we can verify conceptual. There we go. That looks great. Okay, so the next thing then is to draw the shape. And so we've done this, positioned it, swept it, and this is the shape right here. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab this one, and I'm going to say copy it with the base point rather than to spend the video doing that. So I'm going to say copy with base point, and I'm going to select my base point, and then I'm going to alright, now I'll go to the other drawing, and I'll paste it. Edit, paste. Not as a block, because you want to keep that geometry together. So here it is. Now the only thing I'm going to need to do, since when I created this shape, it's correct. I thought I might have to extend down 5 millimeters down here, since I added that 5 millimeter bottom right here, but I don't think I have to. And what I did when I created it was I drew a line 12 millimeters, and then I drew another one 26 millimeters, and so that's this shape. I drew half of it and I mirrored it, and for this angular line it says 95 point. I just clicked on it with a grip and just pulled it over to the side a little bit. It's pretty straightforward. And with these projects, we don't necessarily need to put them on the space shuttle, and so we can do that. Now, I poly edited and joined this also, and so the reason I did that was so that, again, when I extrude it, it's a solid. Okay, so the next thing to do is then to 3D rotate this, and so we'll say 3D rotate, we'll select it, we'll put our axis, let's just put it right here, and then we'll go with this axis, drive it north, and then we'll go like that. We'll 3D rotate it again. Put the axis here, and this time we're going to rotate it around this axis. We'll give it a starting angle and get a track line like that, and then turn it until you see the other track line. There it is, and then you can click. And then we're going to put this at a point in the center. And so what I'll do is I'll draw a line from the center, and I'm just going to get that like that. Resuming, basically what we did was we created the geometry for that shape, and then we made a boundary we edited that shape and joined it, and then I made this line from the center of the bottom, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to just move this to the end point, and then you can kind of look at it, kind of line it up. Looks alright. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to extend this line out. I'm just going to draw a line and extend it to it. Boundary, enter, line to extend. And then we're going to extrude that. I like AutoCAD. You don't have to spell everything right anymore. So we'll extrude that, and we'll say path. You could see it was kind of going crooked there. All right, let's shade it and take a look at it. It looks good. It might be a little wide. We'll see how those dimensions worked out. We'll subtract it. Yeah, I'm not really keen on the geometry. It looks a little too big on the bottom, so I'm going to undo that. And, well, I guess it's per the dimensions, so we'll leave it. But as you do this and you look at your own iPad or as your own template, about the only thing I see after we subtract this is that the slot seems pretty wide, and so you can certainly edit that geometry that cuts it out so that it's not so big. And then if you want to, you can go in here, and if we want, we can go with UCS. We can put a UCS right here. And then if you wanted to, you could put your name on it, or you could put a logo on it. I definitely recommend some kind of marking on it so that you know that it's yours. And so I'll just put a little circle on here, and then I'll press pull it. And that's the way I know it's mine. You could certainly put a letter on there with the bonus tools. If you go to the Express tools, text, you could put text on it and be able to explode that, and then be able to press pull that as well. All right, so that completes how to model the tablet stand. One more thing, save it. So we're going to go here, we're going to say save as, and you need to save it as an AutoCAD file and as a STL file. And so when you save it as your initials dash, we'll call it project 1, and I think we'll call all the projects by the number in the book. And so that's my project 1. I'll save it, and then what I'll do is I'll export the STL, other formats, we'll leave the name the same, hit save, Click on it, enter, and then we'll talk about the slicer in the next video. Okay, that completes this video.